Unbelievable scenario. Almost no one saw this coming. Canada, a country that has depended on American defense technology for decades, suddenly becomes a fighter jet manufacturer for NATO. Not the F-35, not Lockheed Martin. We're talking about Sweden's Gripen fighter jet, built inside Canada, stamped made in Canada, and sold to NATO countries like Poland, Romania, maybe even Germany. It sounds like science fiction. But if this ever happens, it wouldn't just change Canada's military. It would rewrite the rules of the Western alliance. The real question isn't whether Canada could pull this off. It's what happens to the world if they do. To understand why this idea even exists, we need to look at where Canada stands right now. According to Canada's Auditor General, the F-35 program has seen massive cost increases. Early estimates exploded, with long-term costs climbing far beyond original projections once infrastructure and sustainment are factored in. This isn't just a budget issue. Defense analysts describe it as a crisis of confidence. Canada is spending more money than ever, while controlling less than ever. Every major F-35 component depends on a global supply chain coordinated outside Canada. Every software update needs approval. Every maintenance decision follows foreign procedures. Now imagine, in this context, a group of officials in Ottawa quietly asking a dangerous question. If we're spending nearly $30 billion anyway, why not invest in technology we actually control? If we're building factories, why not build aircraft we own? And from that question, a radical idea starts taking shape. This hypothetical scenario, Canada makes an unprecedented move. Instead of purchasing F-35s, Ottawa signs a deal with Sweden's Saab to produce Gripen E fighter jets inside Canada. Not imports, not simple assembly, full production, full technology transfer, from engines to electronic warfare systems to advanced composite manufacturing. International defense observers might call this the deal of the century. Sweden gains a powerful production partner in North America. Canada revives a military aviation industry it lost in the late 1950s, when the CF-105 Aero program was cancelled under heavy controversy. But that's only the beginning. What truly shocks the world isn't Canada building jets for itself. It's Clause 2 of this hypothetical agreement. Canada receives export rights. Suddenly, Canada isn't just a buyer. It becomes a supplier to NATO. Companies like Bombardier and CAE are no longer minor subcontractors. They become full-scale defense manufacturers. Defense analysts suggest this could create a sovereign sustainment model, meaning Canada wouldn't just assemble aircraft. It would control production, maintenance, upgrades, and long-term support. Picture a factory in Ontario. Canadian engineers working side by side with Saab specialists, producing composite airframes. Engines sourced through partners Canada can negotiate with directly. Radar and electronic warfare systems based on Swedish technology, but customized and upgraded inside Canada. And the most critical detail of all, source code. Unlike the F-35, which operates as a closed system, Gripen was designed with an open architecture. If Canada needs to modify software for Arctic conditions, it can do so independently. No permission required. That's the theory. But reality would be far more complex. If this scenario became real, Canada would experience an industrial transformation not seen since World War II. Economic analysts estimate a Gripen production line could create 15,000 to 20,000 direct jobs. Aviation engineers, specialized welders, defense software developers. Bombardier, once a military aircraft producer, could make a historic comeback. K, already a global leader in flight simulation, would become a core technology partner instead of a supporting contractor. But here's what most people overlook: supply chains. To build fighter jets domestically, Canada would need an entire ecosystem from aviation grade, metals to military certified electronics. Hundreds of small and mid-sized companies would be upgraded to NATO standards, creating a full defense industrial network. And this isn't just about economics, it's about technological sovereignty. Now comes the most interesting part. If Canada successfully produces Gripen, what happens to other NATO countries searching for alternatives? Defense analysts suggest at least 3 groups could show interest. First, Eastern European nations like Poland and Romania. Countries increasing defense spending but constrained by budgets. Public reports suggest Gripen's operating costs are dramatically lower than 5th-generation fighters. For these nations, a Canadian-built Gripen could be the perfect balance. Second, Nordic countries focused on defense independence. Finland, now part of NATO, has always valued strategic autonomy. A North American production partner could offer diversification. Third, and this is the real shock, NATO members still flying aging F-16s. They need upgrades, but not everyone wants to lock into the F-35 ecosystem for decades. Stop for a moment and realize how extraordinary this is. Canada, a nation long seen as a peaceful middle power, suddenly becomes a heavy weapons exporter. Not armored vehicles, not ammunition. 4th-generation plus fighter jets. Strategic researchers raise an uncomfortable question. Is Canada ready for that responsibility? Exporting fighter jets means political consequences. It means export control frameworks. It means accountability when these aircraft appear in real combat. Economically, the upside is massive. Industry estimates suggest that selling 200 Gripen jets over 2 decades could generate $25 to $30 billion in revenue, long-term jobs, steady cash flow, and high-tech talent staying in Canada instead of leaving. But geopolitics is where this scenario gets tense. If Canada moves in this direction, how does Washington respond? Observers suggest reactions would come in layers. First, corporate pressure. A major defense contractor losing a massive contract wouldn't stay silent. Second, strategic concerns. For decades, NATO systems have been built around American technology. A shift could raise interoperability debates. But there's another angle. Some U.S. strategists might quietly welcome this. If Canada carries more of NATO's defense load, Washington can redirect resources toward the Pacific, where competition with China is the priority. Geopolitics is never simple. If this scenario plays out over the next 2 decades, Canada wouldn't just change its defense posture, it would redefine its national identity. Instead of importing weapons, Canada could become a net exporter, not only to NATO, but potentially to partners in the Asia-Pacific and beyond. But there's a price. Arms exports raise ethical questions. Who do you sell to? Under what conditions? And technological independence doesn't end with production. It requires constant research, upgrades, and long-term investment. So after walking through this entire hypothetical scenario, one thing becomes clear. If Canada builds and exports Gripen fighter jets, it doesn't just shift military balance. It challenges the idea that middle powers must always orbit superpowers. The final question isn't, can Canada do this? It's whether they're willing to accept the political, economic, and ethical cost that comes with it. This scenario is hypothetical, but the questions it raises are very real. Thanks for watching. If this video made you think, hit like and subscribe. We'll keep uncovering the stories others won't tell.